Hey everyone, this is Iron Torch 20 and we are continuing Mega Man Summer with the third game in the Mega Man X series, which is Mega Man X3. And Mega Man X3 is a little bit different from X2 and X1 in the sense that they actually do add a lot more things compared to X2 and X1. And I fortunately do have some nostalgic memories of this game, seeing as how this is actually the X game I played the most growing up. And you know, the first time I played it, I just rented it from this one video store we had. And it actually wasn't a Blockbuster video, it was something else. And you know, they had all sorts of other stuff like comics and trading cards and all those fun things. And yeah, when I first played this, they did come with the instruction book, but then again I didn't know how to play Mega Man X games. And let's see, one thing was that they actually had other people's passwords on there. Like, they wrote their own passwords on there, so I used them, and I had no idea what was going on in the story. And as far as the story goes, it's a pretty basic plot. I mean, there's not really much to it. I mean, this guy, our Dr. Doppler, like, figured out a way to eliminate Mavericks, and then he ended up somehow going Maverick himself. And then, yeah, the story really doesn't make a whole lot of sense until much later in the game. But, yeah, when I didn't know what was going on with the story, and I was, like, really surprised when I saw a certain character. And, I did just play to the best of my ability, didn't really do that well, but it's kind of like how whenever you rent in a game, and you always had a game like Super Metroid or Zelda: Link to the Past or any of the other Zelda games, and then you always had to play off of somebody else's save file because you didn't really want to create your own. I mean, sometimes you didn't want to create your own and start from the beginning, but then other times the save file was so far you didn't know what was going on. I mean, I had that kind of experience with this game. And also, the first time I actually bought this game was actually from this other store that sold used games. It wasn't GameStop, this was before GameStop, and this was after Funko Land. And it was this other store I went to where I got an old NES, and we did run into some problems with it, and then we did try to exchange it back and like get our money back, but then they were just being complete pricks about the whole thing. And then eventually it settled to the point where I could pick one game from that store that I could get, and then we would never look back at that store again. So it turns out I got this game. And yeah, could have gotten Donkey Kong Country 2, could have gotten Secret of Mana, could have gotten Super Metroid. Nope, I got this game. And yeah, I did end up playing this a ton, and this is actually the X game I'm probably best at. So you do get to see me play this to the best of my ability, I hope, even though I'm already off to a terrible start with the menu screen. But it's the same old thing, so let's just go ahead and dive into it. And I do like this intro stage. It introduces everything without it being too long or too short. I mean, that intro actually didn't drag out for as long as I thought it would, but fortunately, listening to my stories hopefully took some time from it. And yes, Zero is all repaired and everything from the second game. And of course you're playing as X. He, right out of the gates, he controls pretty much the same way he did in X2. And I mean, all the power-ups are the same. And yeah, basically what you're doing is just try and make it through the stage. And this first part's really basic. These our shooting guys are the basic mooks you're going to be seeing. And here we get some dialogue. And then it turns out this random jackass named Mac ended up being part of the Maverick Hunters, and now he joined with Doppler. And I really never understood this whole like capture thing. Or like how it imprisoned people in a magnetic pull or something. Well, I have no idea. But the big change to Mega Man X3 is that you can now play as Zero. Unfortunately, Zero is a little nerfed. He only has 1 life. So if you do end up dying, you can't, or with him, you can't use him again. But Zero has some pretty good weapons. He has his Z's Buster, and then of course his Z Saber, which is an extremely powerful attack. And yeah, this is just introducing like the basic aspect of Zero. He can run, he can dash, jump. He does all the things X does, except he does have a few extra weapons up his sleeve. So let's just go ahead and kick Mac's ass here. And pretty much Mac is has a pretty simple pattern. Really all he does is just occasionally shoot at you. And then he occasionally shoots that big shot at you. But now that X is safe, I can play as him again. And unfortunately, some of the ways they nerfed Zero is that Zero cannot fight bosses, he cannot collect power-ups. And then they actually did fix that in X5 and X6. But I'll get to that when we get to those games. Because now we have the boss of the intro stage, and yeah, no, he's pretty similar to the mech from X2. I mean, he just hangs out there and then occasionally fires his giant mace ball hands at you. But yeah, other than that, this is a guy you should probably take out in seconds, or should be able to. Just like so. And then just for a little bit more dialogue. And since I am playing the SNES version, I'm not sure if I'm gonna edit in the anime cutscenes that come with the PlayStation version. I mean, to tell you the truth, I don't think I'm going to. I mean, you can find the cutscenes in X3 pretty easily. And here's our cast of characters for the game. And they never really explained like what the Mavericks were doing and like why they were holed up in the areas they were, but regardless, I'm gonna go over to Blizzard Buffalo stage. And this is just how the SNES intro would go. And here we get to meet Blizzard Buffalo, as a certain group would call him. And the reason for that was in the PlayStation version, they had that cutscene, but then they called him Blizzard Buffalo. And yeah, that's the whole thing with the whole Blizzard thing. And in the brain scratch commentary of this game, Buffalo, I guess, is like a recurring gag in those commentaries. So now he's known as Blizzard Buffalo. And that was actually a pretty funny commentary they did. And they did rip on this game quite a bit, and you know what, they had their reasons, and they were pretty good reasons. I mean, this game unfortunately isn't as exciting as X2 or X1 were. I mean, it just seems to drag on a few parts of it. And yeah, unfortunately the music is nowhere near as good or as memorable in this game as the other two games. But see, I'm just trying to speed through Blizzard Buffalo's stage here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over, press R, and then switch to 0. Because this section is pretty perilous. It's pretty easy to lose a lot of health here. As you can see, the sub-tank, I am going to have to come back for that. And just dispose of this guy. Yeah, those missile shooting enemies are definitely going to be a pain throughout the game. And yeah, I'm just using 0 to get through this part, just because I don't want X getting hurt too much. And one thing that does make this game pretty tough is that it is really easy to take a ton of damage. And enemies in this game do a lot more damage than in other X games. Alright, made the jump. So let's just get X over here. And unfortunately, you can only use X, or you can only switch to 0 once per stage. But here we get to find Dr. Light. And the new thing with these air dash boots is that you can dash straight up in the air, as they will demonstrate here. So it does serve as sort of a double jump, except there is kind of a delay when you or from the time you press the button to the time you actually dash in the air. And that is something that does come into play a little bit later on. But really, I'm just backtracking here to try and get to this sub-tank. Just like so. And yeah, these missile enemies are definitely going to be a pain. But I'm just going to go forward a little bit and hopefully get to the boss door soon. So let's just go ahead and do that. And now we are up to Blizzard Biffalo, and Blizzard Biffalo has a pretty simple attack pattern, except the only thing is the bosses in this game do a ton of damage early on, and it is really easy to get killed by them just because, you know, you only can get hit a few times before you end up getting killed. And it does seem like they do a lot more damage in this game than they did in other games. And this is where, and I know that Brain Scratch brought this up first, but this is where having 0 fight bosses actually would have helped. And, you know, they brought that up and they have a pretty good reason for it. But really all there is to this guy is that you can, or he occasionally shoots blocks of ice at you to try and slow you down. And those blocks of ice will hurt you if you touch them. And, he also occasionally likes to shoot an ice beam at you. Try and get that activated here. But, yeah, other than that, this is one of the many bosses in this game that just charge at you back and forth. And, really not that much of a challenge when you know what you're doing, but like I said before, since the enemies do so much damage in this game, it's, really easy to get yourself killed a lot early on. But with all that said, Blizzard Biffalo is dead, and we have beaten ourselves our first Maverick. Also, you get a snazzy wireframe demonstration of the weapon you get. And I don't really find, well, there are some weapons I do find to be really useful in this game. And there is one in particular, but I'll address it when we get there. It's actually Wolf Catfish's weapon. And then the password, pretty much the same thing as X2. But with all that done, we're going to go to our next Maverick, and technically Toxic Seahorse is weak to Blizzard Biffalo's weapon, but we're going to go with Tunnel Rhino. And Tunnel Rhino stage can be a bit boring, and yeah, it's pretty generic. It is a mine stage, and the biggest thing that does make it so boring, it just seems like it takes forever. And you do get a kind of dreary background, and this would be a pretty good backdrop for your generic first-person shooter game. So instead, what we're gonna do is just head down this mine shaft. Let's see, these guys will just be there to slow you down, and you have to shoot the green part in order to kill them. And let's see, we can't get this yet, but I'll come back for that later. That is actually going to be a heart tank. And let's just dispose of this guy. And also, if you do get caught by those, I guess, deposits, they do drag you down. And it's really easy for them to drag you either into a pit or into spikes. So let's just go ahead and get our second sub-tank. And yeah, the thing with Tunnel Rhino stage is that even though the music's extremely unmemorable and it does have its certain parts of the background, and it does kind of take a while because these enemies do take a lot of hits to kill, and also they just like to slow you down. Yeah, you know what, let's just skip you. And for some reason X3 is fascinated with a bunch of glowing things in the background in bosses' rooms. And you'll be seeing plenty more of those besides those crystals that I saw earlier. Also, I'm gonna need Bold Catfish's weapon to get that. But we'll get into that when we get into that. This game does feature a lot of backtracking, so I'm gonna be going way out of order in order to try and minimize backtracking. I mean, just like the other 2X games, I'm just playing to minimize backtracking. And here we get our mini-boss, and pretty much what he does is if you can get this guy in a loop where all he does is just ram the door over and over again, and that can definitely be taken the wrong way. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to this guy. If you do stay on the wall, what he likes to do is he likes to latch up to the ceiling and then send his tank after you. And that's pretty much if you try and stay on the wall for too long. But if you just do what I did, all he does is just ram at the door, and it's actually pretty easy to deal with. And then occasionally you get a power-up from these guys. That's I do want to get some health first. Okay, wonderful. So let's just get Zero over here. And yeah, I'm just gonna let Zero handle the rest of this stage. And yeah, the rest of the stage really isn't that hard, but it is pretty easy to have these crabs shave off a bunch of your health. Or a lot of your health. And that really big spark does a ton of damage, so it kind of stinks to get hit by that thing. Let's just get you out of the way. And just like so forth. And here we are up to the boss. And Zero's Z-Saver eventually becomes a pretty broken weapon, but this is what happens when you try and enter a door as Zero. Pretty much X wants all the glory to himself, so he decided to take on Tunnel Rhino. And pretty much all Tunnel Rhino does is charges back and forth. Occasionally he changes direction, and occasionally he likes to shoot his Tornado Fang at you. And he can throw you off sometimes with that change of direction. And that's if you try and dash too early. And also he thinks he's being tricky. And he doesn't jump at all throughout this fight, and occasionally he just does this invincible charge where he like turns all psychedelic and all that, and then tries to just hit you again. But then again, this is probably the easiest Maverick out of all of them. I mean, even if you don't have the weakness, his weakness is the acid burst, but at the end of the day you should be able to handle this guy with the X-Buster. So with all that said, Tunnel Rhino is gone, and we get ourselves our second weapon. And this is actually going to be one of the more useful weapons when it comes to getting all the items. And this is going to be the Tornado Fang, just a giant drill. And you never actually did show it off, but you can shoot 3 of them. Like if you shoot one and then shoot again really quickly, you can form 3 of them. But now we get some plot. And there's another glowing thing in the background. Although they never really explained if Doppler was a Reploid or a human. I mean, I guess he is a Reploid, since, I guess at this point in the series the humans have been pretty much wiped out. Even though they do mention them a lot in X5 and X6, you never actually see any humans. I mean, until the Zero series, but I mean, unfortunately I don't really get into those. And here's our new cast of 3 Stooges. You get Bit and Bite, obviously puns of Data. And then we get our old friend, Mysterious Maverick. Even though you already know who this is. And I was actually pretty surprised the first time I saw Vile, just because I didn't know about this cutscene. And yeah, that was something that really threw me off. Well, gee, I wonder who he's talking about. I mean, I'm not gonna make any weather jokes yet, but I'm going to pretty soon. So with all that said, I'm going to call the video here, so join me next time as we meet our new friends and take out some more Mavericks. See you then.